Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mike's, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Ruben Bressler.
Hello. Wow, I got to go first? I feel so special.
Aaron Campbell.
It's only because I couldn't be trusted to not break.
That's fair. Yeah.
For those are patrons of the show, enjoy the 10 minutes of me trying to get my crap together while Aaron giggles her head off. It was terrific.
And responsible adult Ruben Bressler had to watch the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Ask him how many days old his Chinese is.
Okay.
Oh my God. Look, we also began with our choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most elegant and letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 Commander 2019 cards. Ruben?
Elegant is nice. Well, this week's winner is Dale Lawver, who writes, I was very disappointed to not see this card on any of the lists, especially seems vacant from Aaron's. Bone Miser. The shenanigans available when you get to aim your waist knot at yourself are potentially insane. Bonus points for the card that the miser is actually the person in the art for waist knot. I give an honorable mention to Curse of Fool's Wisdom because that name is awesome.
It's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So well done. Yeah. Bone Miser is a super cool card.
Yeah.
I mean, Waste Knot was really fun when it showed up for the first time. Very sort of cool, powerful, but not didn't really break anything, but it was just really neat, interacting with the graveyard. And now you have the Bone Miser that goes right alongside it.
Waste Knot was if I'm not mistaken, was a community creation that showed up originally in Magic 2015 and got reprinted in one of the Commander expansions, but didn't really do too much anywhere other than in creative decks, fun strategies as opposed to competitive strategies. Bone Miser, 4/4 for 5, has stats to be able to survive and thrive, and also being able to get those effects is really cool.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I really like when they put, effects on non-creatures on a creature. Now you have a Null Rod on a stick with Collector Oof, and you have you have a Waste Knot on a stick and an Eidolon of the Great Rebel, that pyrostatic pillar kind of thing on a creature. I think that's really cool, and I think that opens up a lot of neat space to do new things and bring new creatures in.
So for those who don't know, Bone Miser is a black and 4 generic mana for a 4/4 rare zombie wizard, and it has basically the same text-ish as Waste Knot. When Bone Miser says, whenever you discard a creature card, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Whenever you discard a land card, add 2 black mana. Whenever you discard a non-creature, non-land card, you draw a card. Now, for Waste Knot, all of that stuff applied to your opponent. When your opponent discarded a card, you got a 2/2 zombie. When your opponent discarded a land, you got mana. When your opponent discarded a non-creature, non-land card, you drew a card. So that's super cool. It's kind of the mirror image of it, but it's like it's a better body. It's a 5 mana 4/4, so it can kind of stick around a little bit and give you time to abuse it, essentially.
Who doesn't love discarding cards?
There you go.
It's true. There you go.
For value.
Sure.
Is that Ox going to break? Is that weird Ox that makes a food whenever you move it between zones and stuff?
Oh, the cow that you sell at the market?
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably not going to break. It is certainly weird enough that it could slot into very strange applications like, some kind of weird dredge strategy where you just exchange cards between your graveyard and your hand and your library all the time. But
right. Like anything that gives you a free something.
I would never.
Because you moves between zones, I think would be up Aaron's alley if somebody could do something cool with it. And just kind of, it's just one of those weird cards that comes out of nowhere.
The bartered cow or the battered cow?
Yeah, the
bartered cow. Yeah.
So bartered cow, if it is what I'm thinking it is, did make an appearance in a Eternal. Yes. So the Survival of the Fittest folks have been playing with this card.
Interesting.
Because you can discard it to that as just a fun little thing. So
interesting.
I'm telling you, you get free anything, free artifacts, a free permanent to do stuff with, life to get you later in the game. Free is free, and that's a weird little oddball card that could be really sweet. All right, so and obviously thank you very much to Dale Lawver for participating in the show. You get a free $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. Get in contact with Erin if she hasn't blocked you already. She's looking.
I'm thinking about it right now.
At Dale Lawver blog. Yeah. Got it.
And also shout out to C Massive, one of our amazing patrons who filled in at the last minute to help us compare all of our lists because our normal assistant Carrie is busy tonight, so she couldn't do that. So thank you.
Right. And slops to me for knowing that about a day ago
Right.
and doing nothing about it until about 18 minutes before we
You
recorded.
were fixing the Kickstarter rewards, which are out,
Right.
I believe.
Kickstarter's out. Kickstarter's going to be out.
Amen.
They're going to let me know as soon as everything is shipped so I can tell everybody to expect things. So that's there. It's going to be pop sockets, matchbooks, match boxes for those overseas because I can't send matches in packages overseas.
We'll make it up to you guys.
Sorry for the match loss.
You'll have to ignite your spark in some other manner,
Right.
As it were. But anyway, obviously, thanks to Cool Stuff for sponsoring that right there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now it's time to talk about our top 10 promo cards. It is fairly rare that I don't have any hires or any sames on anybody else's list.
It's true.
But you do.
I do. I have 2 hires. At least one of these, I think, is going to be on your list, Evan.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have a little bit of overlap just on where we placed them.
And that's kind of normal, I suppose.
Yeah.
But that said, let's go ahead and get it started with number 10. Aaron, what is your number 10?
So a lot of my promo cards revolve around the art because in my opinion, that's the big draw of promo cards is, obviously there's reprint value and getting more cards into, the ecosystem somewhere people can get them. But really the art is what makes or breaks a promo. I have seen many promo announcements fall on deaf ears because the art wasn't very good or the frames weren't very good or it was foil when you want a non-foil. And so, we're really there for the visual aspect. And so a lot of my cards really roped me in on that level. And my number 10, which is one of those cards where when I was going through Scryfall the other day, this is a card that we've obviously seen a lot of. This is a card that has become sort of a verb in terms of we've seen other cards do similar things to this, but this was really one of the originals. My number 10 is Mind Control. So Mind Control is 3 colorless and 2 blue. It's an enchantment aura. Enchant creature you control, enchanted creature. The art by Keith Garlett specifically, it's like a stained glass window.
Yeah.
And you have like one face that's red and breathing fire. You have another face that's crying. You have one face that appears to be like calm or relaxed. The other face is in anguish. And then there's just these weird 2 eyes that are like obviously from the same face, but a lot of that face is missing. And so just to see like normally what's associated as kind of being like holy image, like stained glass, being beautiful and terrifying at the same time just really took my breath away, especially coming from blue where it was just like, this is ridiculous. And just these really bright colors. And the flavor text really seals it all for me. Jace saying, why fight the body when you can dominate the mind that rules it? And just a package of greatness.
Goodness gracious. I had forgotten about this particular promo. Yeah. It is awesome.
It's really good. Yeah, I remember getting this one and thinking that this feels like a unique thing. This feels like a promo that you earn and is super cool. Yeah.
And it's crazy to me that it is as cool and unique and honestly as sort of striking as it is. It's like 75 cents for real.
Yeah.
And there was a variety of like promo cards that I would run into, and I'm like, that's worth what now? Holy cow! And then I would run into the fact that just now with Throne of Eldraine, there were Throne of Eldraine cards in my sorting by price or whatever amongst all the promos because those things are like $150, $120. I mean,
even I think someone was talking about Kaya, the new Kaya. I think foil. Someone on Twitter was like, she's triple digits already. Where it's like, what Dax?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Small sets that don't sell super well. They're foil mythics or infinite dollars, but Mind Control, absolutely fantastic promo. I love it. Ruben, what is your number 10?
My number 10 is one of my 2 hires. So we'll get it out of the way quick.
All right, then. I found a weird one for my number 10. I'll be honest. It's quite unique, and I kind of just sort of stumbled on it, like I try to get as much information as I can when I do these lists, and I went through all the cards. There were like 2,300 promos. That took forever, and I was looking through it, and then I found one on a list that someone had posted online of like, what are your favorite promos? And I was looking through theirs, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. I'd never seen this card before, and I thought it was really sweet. So if I can kind of point a spotlight on a Donato Giancola masterpiece, which is Archangel, that showed up in a magazine insert.
Ooh, yeah.
Go check out the magazine insert Archangel. It was never used again, just that one time around 6th edition. Yep, absolutely incredible. I love it. And the only one I could find on eBay was like $50. So like good luck finding a copy, essentially. But Donato is an absolute master. I thought this was absolutely gorgeous, and it just blew me away. I thought it was great.
Donnie G, as Mike Linneman lovingly refers to him as.
Yeah, this is a really beautiful piece. I saw this one when I was doing my research as well. Thought about it. There are a couple of magazine promos that were from back in the day. One that did not end up making my list, that I'm assuming didn't make anybody else's list, is a Duelist magazine promo of Warmonger.
Oh boy!
That if it made any of your lists, let me know. But it has it's common for Mercadian masks, but also has a little feather next to the Mercadian mask set symbol, and it was like one of the first foil promos, and it came in a magazine insert for the Duelist magazine. I don't know why it sticks out in my memory. It's just from when I first started playing. Those magazine inserts are super unique.
I mean, back in the day, getting those magazine inserts, like, you know, kids, we used to get our information on these dead trees.
Right.
They'd chop them into little pieces and put like stuff on them, and we'd read them. And incredible. And like, just be able to open that plastic bag and like to dig the promo out was so cool. And they gave us a pacifism right when Mirage came out. Like, man, people lost their minds. It was absolutely ridiculous and fantastic. And I'm talking about when I was a teenager, so shut up. It was great.
Did the post office man come on a dinosaur? Did he just?
Yeah.
Well, he used his feet, you see. That's
or was he the dinosaur?
No, no.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, that is a fantastic choice, but it did not make any of my lists, unfortunately.
Sure.
All right, so let's move on here to number 9. Ruben, what's your number 9?
My number 9, there are so many ways that a promo can come about, but this one sticks out in my memory because it is a promo that had such gravitas when it came out and continued to be such a unique thing, because there have only been maybe a dozen, probably fewer, promos that came out with novels with various books. The first one, I think, being either Arena or Sewers of Estark, which might be on somebody's list, but the one that sticks out in my memory, I was in college, and several of my friends bought copies of Agents of Artifice. And the promo that came along with Agents of Artifice was Jace Beleren. And so the promo version of Jace Beleren, a media promo or a novel promo, as it's typically referred to, is one that sticks out in my memory. It has super unique art and is non-foil, as all the book promos are, as far as I'm aware. And is, of course, one of the original Lorwyn 5. It's colorless blue for Planeswalker Jace, the first Planeswalker Jace. 3 starting loyalty, +2 each player draws a card, -1 target player draws a card, -10 target player puts the top 20 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard.
Yeah, that was a fantastic promo. I have a very clear memory of being on the Magic Cruise in 2007 and trading for this very card for my cube because it was brand new. It was super cool. Right. It was very unique. And at the time it was like maybe $40-50. And over time has gone up a little bit. We're probably in the $70 range or so, which is fine.
Yeah, there was a time where this card was around $100, a little while after the set came out and while it was still popular in Standard. So
right, and while it still was sort of one of the best blue planeswalkers, because you know it took a minute to get to the Mind Sculptor, it took a minute to get to Baby Jace, and all that. So but Jace Beleren in and of itself was a terrific option there. Aaron, what's number 9?
So my number 9 was recently the subject of a joke on Twitter or a tweet that went viral. Somebody on September 19th from @QuakeYote, QUAKEYOTE, posted a tweet that says, "I'm so happy their transition went well. They look so much happier." And on the left was the original version of the card from Ice Age, and the right side was the version that I'm going to talk about. And on the left, I'll just go ahead and name the card. My number 9 is Finehorn Elves. So Finehorn Elves costs 1 green. It says summon elves. You can tap it, add green to your mana pool, and it's so old it says play this ability as an interrupt. So the gag here is if you look on the left, you have a red-haired male and a blonde male. And then if you look at the online promo, you have a red-haired woman and a blonde woman. And so the joke is that over so many years, these two elves went through some changes. And so this got a lot of traffic, over 1,000 retweets, over 3,000 likes on Twitter. And it was just so funny, and it just made perfect sense when you looked at them side by side. It just really clicked, and I thought it was so funny.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Really good.
Yeah, this is was also printed as a common and vintage masters, but was a Magic Online promo, and it was sort of what Wizards was doing back in the day when they said, you know, you don't always have to play with the core sets. You know, you can do other stuff, and we can take you to other worlds. Now in this world, there's a land of worlds, but it's called Finhorn,
Right.
And again, more of Wizards not knowing what they're not knowing and making multiple mana producers for 1 green mana in standard at the same time, which is what happened. That kind of got out of control a little bit, but ultimately to have the old art kind of reference the new art, and maybe it's a little in-joke, I don't know, but I think it's great, and I'll take it. All right, so MTGO on that one. All right, so for my number 9, this is a very expensive card. This card was like stupidly, weirdly not given out. Because I think for whatever reason, the only time this card was ever given out was Two-Headed Giant Champs over in England.
That is niche.
This was like 2006 or something, maybe maybe earlier. This card is currently $550, and let me tell you a tragedy. I got one of these for helping. I got one of these as from a Wizards employee when I was at a event at one point, and obviously I treasured the hell out of it, because if you have seen the extended art foil Mutavault, this thing is pimp crazy. And so, not knowing what I'm not knowing, and trying to be a happy, fun Magic player who helps out his fellow Magic players, I let some people crash in my room at Nationals one year. And as I went back through my cube box, some things were missing, including my extended art foil Mutavault.
Yuck.
And I was, of course, devastated. And there were plenty of other things that they could have taken, but they didn't. And there's plenty of things that they did take that made me really sad. But nothing made me more sad than the Mutavault. So it was really awesome. As I recall, I believe it was the Judge program that helped me at the time find another one of these and get me another one of these back sort of in my cube so I could kind of restore it whole. And that was fantastic. And Mutavault, if you don't know, is an unbelievably powerful land from Morningtide. They reprinted again in Magic 2014 because who cares? Mutavault is a land that taps for a colorless mana. For 1 generic mana colon, it becomes a 2/2 creature with all creature types until end of turn. So when it was important to be a creature type, this was the land you wanted to play. And honestly, people just played it in all sorts of decks because Mutavault is just a great man land, period.
Right. It's just a colorless to activate, and you didn't need to have any tribal synergies, but if you did, it was even better. This was my number 10.
Nice.
I recalled that story. I almost didn't put it on my list, but I felt like it was certainly deserving of being on the list, and it's still quite the expensive card.
It's a very cool card, but again, I can't remember why, but like again, only in the UK at like Two-Headed Giant States events, and it's like who was playing back then, and like 64 copies in the world or something stupid.
Right.
It was crazy. Yeah. All right, let's move on here to number 8. Aaron, what's number 8?
My number 8 is the first of a couple cards on my list that is very on brand. So this is a card that if you are, tribal strategies live and die by their 1-drops. And we've seen a lot of decks come and go in standard that, you know, weren't quite a thing until they had the good 1-drop. And this was a card that was a very important piece the first time it came around in the Black-Red Zombies list. And then it came back around in standard again when it was reprinted in Magic 2019. And it also saw play in the standard decks after important cards like Cryptbreaker and Dark Salvation rotated out. So if you're going to be playing zombies, you want to be playing with this card. And the fact that it's pretty certainly helps. My number 8 is Diregraph Ghoul. So Diregraph Ghoul is 1 black. It's a creature type zombie. Diregraph Ghoul enters the battlefield tap for a 2/2. A 2/2 with very little downside is pretty awesome, especially if you can boost it up with Anthem effects. But what really seals the deal for me is this full art promo that essentially has this female zombie with a huge sword just through her. And she's slid down on it, and she's like, "It's cool, I got this," and just doesn't seem to be encumbered by it at all. And so it's creepy, it's strangely beautiful, and it certainly helps when it's such an important card.
Oh my goodness! See, that's the position I was sleeping in when I got the crick on my neck. It's when you do that and sleep. It
feels like I got a sword through my back.
Right? You know.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here, Ruben. What's your number 8?
My number 8 is among the halls of famous promos throughout history. There are a couple of categories that remain famous just as categories, and one of them are the textless player rewards. I assume this won't be the last text list player reward on our lists, but I wanted to point out, a lot of the foils are going to get a lot of the headlines, but I in particular liked the commons and uncommons that were given the text list treatment that were non-foil. And one of them that I really, really loved is the Christopher Rush illustrated Mana Leak that came out in 2005. Mana Leak, for those of you that don't know, is an instant counter-target spell unless its controller pays 3 colorless or 3 generic mana. Very Kamigawa flavor to this Mana Leak. And this one, this particular art in particular was all over the place at the top tables, all the time in a variety of decks. But most indelible in my mind was when Blue-White Delver was such a powerhouse in Standard. I used to have a playset of these myself that I had played a great deal of, and to this day, still a $12.50 common, but treatment of a common from the Player Rewards program.
Yeah, they used to send you money. Like, they would just
in the mail.
Every 3 months, they're like, here's some money. And you're
you got to back it up a little bit. You got to explain to these kids what mail is.
Yeah, it's these physical things through
also,
boxes.
It's 2019. What's money?
It's true. But they used to have this thing where as long as you were playing, you were actively playing, and they didn't really, they didn't call it Planeswalker points or anything back then, but if you were playing and you got your matches in, they would reward you with just free cards. And sometimes over the years, they literally had sent you a $50 bill. They had sent you a $60 thing. And of course, players complained about it because you can't give them a $100 bill because it was folded the wrong way or whatever. But, this Mana Leak, isn't good enough, isn't cool enough. And like, well, turns out it's $12.50 all these years later because it was really sweet. So, Mana Leak, classically, horrifically reprinted in Magic 2012.
Yep.
Giant mistake.
It's because it was able to be a tempo card in Magic 2012, whereas it was fine as a control card. It's fine if you don't go turn 1 ridiculous creature and then protect it with your Mana Leak.
I'm fine with it. As a wise woman once said, I'm a thick witch. I need tempo.
Wow. I like it. All right. Move on here to my number 8. It's fairly recent, but that doesn't mean it's bad. And in fact, I would argue that because it is as cool as it is, they have a foil and a non-foil version of it. It is something that will get you into these Magic Fests, which is the foil or non-foil textless Lightning Bolt.
Yeah,
it is an incredible picture by Kekai Kotaki, I believe is how you say that. Okay. It's, if you don't know, Lightning Bolt is 1 red for an instant that deals 3 damage to any target because it's Bolt and Bolt rules. But Lightning Bolt itself, to get them at the Magic Fest, there's different packages to get the non-foil and the foil. I think if you play in the main event, you get a foil, and then side events can give you non-foils for whatever reason. But the image is amazing. I love it. It's going to be awesome, and it's like $12 now. It's going to be a lot more expensive in the future.
Yeah. It's I got one of these at one of the first GPs of the season and was able to unload them for like a $50 value, which was ridiculous because there weren't a ton out yet. And now, of course, they've settled a little bit. But supply and demand being what they are, I love me a Bolt. Everybody knows I love me a Bolt, and these are lovable bolts.
I have to say, it's been so weird in recent weeks to see Lightning Bolt seeing play in Vintage again because Mental Misstep is gone. And so the Jeskai Arcanist deck right now is amazing, in part because it thrives on 1-drops. And so if you pack your deck, it used to be something you would kind of scoff at, where it'd be like, girl, what you doing? Like, you're playing Lightning Bolt in Vintage. What is your life right now? And now it's like, you can't say that anymore because Lightning Bolt is good again. And it's just like, oh no.
I'll take it. I mean, that's better than living in a world, in my opinion, full of mental missteps. I thought that card is miserable.
I love that card.
That card is miserable magic, and I don't know what they were doing making it. Just saying. All right, let's move here to number 7. Aaron, what you got for number 7?
So I structured my list in such a way to where the cards that are kind of higher on the list actually see quite a bit of play. And so we're starting to get into the cards that see play in various formats, with the exception of my number 1, but even that could be argued. So my number 7 is typically a sideboard card that you usually see in the Tron decks, the colorless Eldrazi decks, as a way for them to deal with opposing creatures. It's very rare that colorless gets a removal spell, but this card really kind of changed the game in that regard. My number 7 is Spatial Contortion. So spatial contortion is one colorless and a wingding. It's an instant. Target creature gets +3/-3 until end of turn. And so the original version is kind of vague. Like you're not really sure. You see some like bright purpleness, some random Eldrazi-ness, but you're not really clear as to what's happening there. The promo version is really, really cool. You see this guy, or you see his legs kind of in the background on this grassy field, and then in the front of the camera, you see his first half, and you can see kind of like this weird, almost like his torso is being spun and stretched. And you have to imagine that he's been like spun and looped around into having his face on the ground. And it's really, really cool without being particularly gory. Like obviously you see some sort of, blood or meat there, but it's not like egregious, right. And it's just really, really cool. And it's very clear what's happening there. It's obvious it's some form of removal spell. It also gives some power as well. So like it kind of can double if you're playing like an opposing colorless Eldrazi deck and you just want to make your Reality Smasher bigger, you can do that. And so I like that it's clear that the guy's not necessarily being killed. And so I think there's a lot of layers to this. I think it's really, really cool. And I'm a big fan.
Wow. That like, weird posture thing is amazing.
Yeah. That's how Evan's back feels.
I'm telling you.
That's me trying to get somebody's attention that I like. Just like, oh, I'm over here.
That's me trying to make sure that this show stays on the rails. Me just bending over backwards,
twisting around,
twisting and contorting myself.
I thought that was you twisting at the last minute to find the honorable mention. Just like, oh, I got it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I looked it way over here. Yeah.
Oh God, I hurt my neck. Okay. Ruben, what's your number 7?
He hurt his dead neck talking about spatial contortion. We're on number 7 now?
We're on number 7.
This one is the final hire of my 2 on somebody else's list.
Okay, then, well, that's fine. If I have to do it, I have to do it. Now, look, just like Wizards of the Coast used to mail you $50 bills, they used to give you $50 bills just for showing up at your pre-release.
Yeah.
Or in this case, $30 bills, but whatever. The point is, they would give you like the best card in the set. It was insane.
There was a period of time where they did that, yeah.
They'd give you planeswalkers and the best creatures and all this other crazy stuff. And when we went back to a plane and you showed up at that pre-release and they said, here, take a 6-mana 6/6. The Death Touch and Lifelink. And when it dies, it makes 2 3/3s with Death Touch and Lifelink. Because Wormcoil Engine was the pre-release promo for Scars of Mirrodin.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And if you didn't notice, I literally just told you what the card did. It's a 6-mana 6/6 that has Death Touch and Lifelink, and when it dies, it makes a 3/3.
Fun fact, Alexis Jansen, who gets a lot of flack for being behind Dragon's Maze, this is her baby. She is responsible for this card. So when you think of shading her because of how bad Dragon's Maze was, go ahead and give her a pat on the back because she's the reason this card exists.
I love this card. I played a ton of it. I'm a little sad that the promo version that we are talking about and the regular version are so similar.
Yeah.
But both arts are spectacular. It's just from a slightly, make sure you get a my good side kind of deal with the sort of angles that you get on the Wormcoil Angels. Nice. Hey, you gotta find your lighting, and this Wormcoil Angel was able to find its lighting.
I mean, this I think really shows the power of Raymond Swanland. Like this is Raymond Swanland's warehouse is just big giant wormy creature with crazy color popping out of it. Absolutely fantastic. This card still to me seems unbelievably egregious in terms of power level.
It's just obnoxious.
You could be doing almost anything with your Tron decks these days. But
it's in vintage.
Yeah, vintage. And a lot of people choose to not pay 7. They want 6 for the Wormcoil Engine.
My fondest memory of a Wormcoil Engine was I was playing in a Legacy Challenge one day, and I was facing a streamer named Two Tragedies, who was from Europe, and he was playing a colorless Eldrazi list with 4 ley lines, and he had leyline avoided me, and I was on Reanimator, and so I unmasked him, put his Wormcoil in the yard, and then reanimated it, and I beat him to death with it, and it was great. And
it's always nice.
Yeah, so sometimes you just got to think outside the box. Use every part of the Wormcoil Engine,
Right. That's right. Every single one of them. But that card is terrific. Let's move on here to number 6. Ruben, what's your number 6?
Perhaps no collection of promos has more clout and more history in the game than the Friday Night Magic promos. Dozens and dozens, over 100, I believe, Friday Night Magic F&M promos. And it would be impossible for me to choose one above all of the rest. But I had to do what I had to do. And so I went with the one that isn't perhaps the most powerful, isn't perhaps the most impactful, but is the first. My number 6 is River Boa, which was the first Friday Night Magic promo way back in the year 2000.
I remember that.
River Boa is a colorless and a green for a 2/1 snake that has Island Walk and has a green mana, regenerate River Boa. Originally printed in Visions, it was reprinted later on in 6th edition, and that, of course, is the version that got the Friday Night Magic treatment.
Yeah, this was like a... Back in the day, this was like a serious aggro card. Like this was
this
good
was
as it was
very
getting.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, in its environment, like you didn't get anything that was both like powerful in terms of it had a regeneration ability, but also had power equal to its mana cost, which was nice. And the ability to get by people who were playing the most annoying color was also insane, at least at the time. So like River Boa was actually a serious Magic card at one point. It didn't last long, but it was a real contender there for a minute. All right. So, Aaron, what is your number 5?
Speaking of Tron.
Number 6. Sorry.
Yeah. So speaking of Tron, this is a card that people have named as being a card worth banning in Modern. You know, Modern is one of those formats where nobody's ever happy. And so if it isn't Faithless Looting, then it's, you know, something else, you know, fill in the blank, you know. And this was one of those cards that, you know, Mox Opal was another one, or it's like, you got to get rid of it. And so anytime the Tron does well, or any sort of artifact deck, and even with Once Upon a Time recently, people compared it to this card. And I was surprised to find that there was a really cute flavor of this card out there that had nothing to do with the Eldrazi or Tron or anything like that. My number 6 is Ancient Stirrings. So Ancient Stirrings is 1 green. It's a sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a colorless card from among them and put it into your hand, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Everyone remembers exactly where they were when you realized that a land was a colorless card. I remember the first time I went to Modern F and I was like, that's a land. And they're like, yeah. That's colorless. And I was like, get out. But there is a promo version I found on Magic Online with this kitty. It's cute. It's this black cat, this little kitten with bright green eyes surrounded by these beautiful leaves. I mean, obviously the green is giving you some idea that something's going on, but it's not as overt as the other Ancient Stirrings where there's literally an Eldrazi like crawling out of the ground. And so I like that this is subtle, it's cute, it's very disarming, and it puts a new face on a classic card.
Yeah.
I can't believe they would reprint it in Masters 25 but not use this artwork.
It's cute.
This artwork is insane.
The artwork
it's also
is
it makes
so
it easier
adorable.
to be in Standard too, because you don't have that Eldrazi association with it. You could probably put this. I mean, it would break Standard, but I mean, like, you know, to have the cat makes it a lot easier to splash as opposed to like it must be an Eldrazi set.
I think Wizards has figured out that this card was a little too good. I think they put that together.
People have described it in the same like as Brainstorm. I mean, Ponder. I mean, you look at Modern and Ponder's banned, but
they put it on the same level as Faithless Looting for a long time. There was a long discussion about what cards are going to get banned. Is it going to be Mox Opal? Is it going to be Faithless Looting? Is it going to be Ancient Stirrings? I mean, this is perpetually on the watch list.
So speaking of awesome promo versions of really, really playable cards, this was originally a Magic Online promo that they did make a World Magic Cup qualifier promo, and it is fantastic, and it's really, really unique in that it's very, very rare on a Magic card that you just see somebody's face. And I thought it was amazing when Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, by Steve Argyle, did a version for the World Magic Cup qualifiers that have a sword right here next to her face and have that face right here right on the card, just front and center. I thought it was really cool. It was evocative, emotional. And if those don't know, Thalia, Guardian of Thraben originally showed up in Dark Ascension as a white and generic mana for a 2/1 legendary human soldier with first strike, and non-creature spells cost 1 generic more to cast. Obviously, that's a big deal in older formats. But this version in particular, I thought was fantastic. And I was like, oh, it's really so sweet. Please print it. And they did print it, and you can get it in physical form, and that's awesome.
Real close-ups on faces, similar to that Ancient Stirrings actually, but close-ups on human faces are so rare. And when they happen, they end up being a famous card a large percentage of the time. Days, for example, the original printing of Days is super iconic. Even something as somewhat forgotten as Jor Kadeen people remember it because of how impactful the art is and how close up and the colors and the emotion that's in the face. And this Thalia is absolutely a great example of that.
Fantastic. All right, let's move on here to our top 5. Ruben, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is a card that is, we talked a little bit about cards that came in magazine inserts. We talked a little bit about novel inserts. Well, this one was a comic book insert. And it was a comic book reprint of a card that hadn't seen print for 20 years, I want to say. And for the first time in a long time, when the IDW comics came out, we finally got a new version with brand new Eric Deschamps art of High Tide, featuring Ral Zarek riding on a pirate ship. And this was, of course, before the days of Ixalan. We hadn't had pirates in a while, so this was just a very exciting card all the way around. And, of course, a very unique IDW gold set symbol. High Tide is 1 blue mana. It's an instant. Until end turn, whenever a player taps an island for mana, that player adds an additional blue, to his or her mana pool. Is how it's printed, of course. And since then, we've gotten rid of the mana pool portion, but there's nothing like the high seas to clear your head or escape pursuers. Just a really famous version of this card at this point.
Yeah, High Tide made popular by my friend Feline Longmore. Another deck that is starting to see play in Vintage again because you can't misstep a High Tide. And so all these new strategies are coming forth, and I think it's great.
I think the fact that there is a $20 promo version of a 42-cent card from Fallen Empires is pretty awesome. High Tide, if you don't know, is a cornerstone of a lot of combo decks because playing High Tide and playing another High Tide and playing maybe even another High Tide means that your lands are tapping for 4 at a time, and it gets absolutely ridiculous and silly. And I thought it was really cool, and it's great that this isn't on like the reserve list or anything. They can do cool stuff like this in the future. Like maybe when we go back to do Pirates again, we'll see another cool promo version of this. We'll see. All right. So that is your number 5. Aaron, what's your number 5?
I had to resist the temptation to make my entire list about Seb McKinnon because Seb McKinnon has created some amazing alternate art for promo cards, and he's Seb McKinnon. And I had to kind of prune my list a little bit because at one point I was like, Seb, this isn't top 10 Seb, what are you doing? And so I had to kind of scale it back a little bit. But I really wanted to pick the best of the best, and that was hard because with Seb, they're all the best. But this is a card that is a staple of Pauper, hashtag Pauper, playing Kendra. And also sees play in old school Magic, which is 93-94 for those playing at home. And, had been associated with some really old folio art back in the day. Those of you who've been playing a while will remember Kaya and Phil Folio and their very distinct art, these sort of busty, comic book, almost anime kind of characters, and recently kind of had a bit of a glow up. And Seb gave it a little bit more of an adult artwork, still very, very creepy and still keeping the spirit of the card, and just took my breath away. My number 5 is Kumbaj Witches. Kumbaj Witches is 2 black. I'm probably saying that wrong. Creature type human wizard, pulling an Evan Irwin, 1 power and 3 toughness. You can tap Kumbaj Witches, deals 1 damage to a creature or player, and then 1 damage to creature or player of an opponent's choice. This is a staple of mono black control and Pauper. Again, sees play in old school, but this art, you had sort of these busty, kind of temptresses in the original Arabian Nights version, and now you have these sort of you have the younger kind of witch there, really going white purity, the gold trim on her robe, and then you have kind of the darker crone version on the other side, both of them kind of having the daggers aimed at each other's hands, really embodying that 1-for-1 that this card does. And like a lot of Seb's art, it just has so much layers to it: young, old, light, dark. Gorgeous art, and just one of those pieces of art that people were like, I need this in my life.
Absolutely. And it's incredible that that's not printed anywhere. That's not
right. Yes. I know. Well, this has been done in playmat form, I believe, on Seb's Kickstarter, and was one of the load screens for Magic Online for a half a minute or a week or however long they last for.
Right.
But yeah, it is surprising, and you could have made this. I think that this one was a downloadable desktop art when those were things that you could do as well. So yeah.
Man, it's really weird. It's gorgeous. It's fantastic. It's playing Pauper. Like, we got all the things are checked over here. Just print it in something. Like, God. Yeah. Anyway, all right. So, for my number 5, this is I would argue, one of the weirdest, dumbest, maybe. I don't know. Like, just we're going back to when they sent you a bunch of money in the mail.
Yeah.
And when I finally got to, like, I started making the Magic Show, and I started being able to, like, go to these giant events and talk to the developers, which was really cool. So I could go to them, and I could be like, what in the hell were you thinking making Cryptic Command a completely textless promo card?
Yeah.
So here we go, Ruben. You can't look. You got to look. Okay. You got to tell me right now, what does Cryptic Command do? Do it in the right order.
Yep.
Go.
Oh, I have to do it in the right order?
Bonus points for right order. Go ahead, but you got to give me all 4 modes.
Okay.
I know.
Choose. Okay.
You're asking the red page.
Choose 2. Oh, he knows Cryptic Command.
Give me a second. The order is what's going to screw me up. Colors blue, blue, blue. Mm-hmm. Choose 2. Counter target spell.
Yep.
I'm gonna say tap all creatures your opponents control.
No, that's the right mode, but it's the wrong order. It's okay.
It's okay. So it's counter target spell, return target permanent to its owner's hand, tap all creatures your opponents control, draw a card.
That's correct.
Okay,
good job.
I had the middle 2.
But wasn't it reformatted in newer sets to be draw a card? Then wasn't it like numerical, like less numbers, like? Wasn't draw a card on top then, and then
no. Before it just had like semicolons and the choose 2, and instead of having the little bullet dots.
And it was the same. It's always been the same order.
Did they?
It's always been the same order.
Yeah, it's always been the same order, and it's fine because the one that everybody gets wrong is tap all creatures your opponents control. Most people say tap all creatures target opponent control.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not how that works. And I was literally able to go like, what were you thinking? Making a 4 mode, the modes count, which mode happens first, it matters, and you made that textless. It's just wild, absolutely wild. They could do nothing but kind of smile and laugh. God knows how it got made. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe the real story will come out one day because it's completely bonkers, but Cryptic Command, Ruben told you what it did. It's $60.
Well,
they sent you $60 in the mail back in 2009.
Right. Yeah. The textless foil player rewards cards make sense when they're Damnation, right? Or Lightning Bolt or Pyroclasm, even something as complicated as Putrefy, right? Once you get to the 4 mode mark, it's a little
This is a card that even with the text on it, some people don't understand.
Right.
Much less you take it away. Like, what?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, because it almost felt like in ways you were kind of cheating. You're like, no, this is going to do all these things, and it's going to mess you up. And you're like, judge, it's like, no, that's what it does. It completely destroys you. That's what Cryptic Command do. All right, let's move on here to number 4. Aaron, what is your number 4?
Another Seb McKinnon masterpiece. I've talked a couple times about how, the promos are an opportunity to do the art differently. But more importantly, it's also an opportunity to convey a very different mood. My number 4 was kind of comical in its flavor text. The art was more funny, more silly in a way. It wasn't very graphic. And then with this particular art, it veered into just downright macabre, even down to the flavor text. This is just a really, really creepy take on a card. My number 4 is Abrupt Decay. So Abrupt Decay is 1 black and a green. It's an instant. Abrupt Decay can't be countered by spells or abilities. Destroy target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less. This is a staple in Modern and Legacy. Any format that can play black-green is probably playing this. Like, it's just an amazing card. The 3 or less clause is a, dog whistle to older formats where a lot of what you're doing is 3 or less. And so this gets rid of a lot of things very quickly. And in the first art, it was just sort of a weird kind of dull flavor text about the is it in the Golgari or the is it not honoring insurance clauses. But the remake is a goblin that's basically dissolving and knows he's dissolving. And so the flavor text says the worst part isn't the pain or the smell, or even the fear of death. It's hearing the clatter of bone on stone and knowing the bones are yours. Like, whoa!
I love that flavor text.
Yeah, and so you have this goblin that is alive for all of this, and the flavor text just ties it together. It's so Golgari, and it's just brilliant.
Wow. Yeah, this is, they finally printed it in the WMCQs, which was nice, like a $26 promo or whatever. So we do have a real version that you can get, which is awesome. Of course, Seb killing it.
Literally, that poor goblin.
I know, right? Assassin's Trophy was kind of the big, oh my god, black green spell to come out of guilds, but but at the time for Return to Ravnica, and honestly, ever since it was printed, this has seen a ton of play in various ways, because not being able to be countered is pretty important.
It's a huge deal, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, so Ruben, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is my top 3 are going to be sort of the best of the popular promo categories. I feel my number 4 is from a group of promos that came out just once. They came out in Ixalan, and there were 10 of them. But I thought that they were just absolutely spectacular. I'm talking of the Ixalan treasure chest promos. And they are I think, probably my favorite series of promos to come out in recent memory. The backs of which are done by Jared Blando, who is a fantasy artist and fantasy cartographer, and does a bunch of arts. And the one that I'm going to choose is Search for Azcanta, which of course flips over into Azcanta, the Sunken Ruin. Search for Azcanta is a legendary enchantment for a colorless and a blue. At the beginning of your upkeep, you essentially surveil 1. You look at the top card of your library, you can put it into your graveyard. Then, if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you may transform it into Azcanta, the Sunken Ruin, which is a land that taps for either taps for a blue, or you can pay 2 colorless, a blue, and tap it to look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. The front of this one is done by Magali Villeneuve, and the back, of course, done by Jared Blando. I love this whole cycle. All 10 of the arts on the back are done by Jared Blando, and they are so fantastical and put you in the world and make you feel like you're there.
Yeah, these are absolutely terrific. This one's about $47 right now,
Yikes.
Probably to be more expensive later. But the idea that, they could do transformed cards and do something really unique and sort of piratey with it, really just dig into that flavor. This is the type of stuff you want to see. You want to see the treasure maps and whatnot. So this was great. I love this entire promotion. And honestly, I don't think it got enough hype at the time for as cool as it was.
Yeah.
Thought that was fantastic. All right. So for my number 4, it's kind of a cycle. I couldn't really nail down one or the other. It's just kind of insane looking back now and seeing how ridiculous, how insanely expensive these things are going to be. Because back in the day, I saw these things, I thought they were neat, and I could have traded for them. Not a big deal. They weren't worth infinite. There was probably, maybe $10 at the time or whatever that people valued them at because, super valuable lands hadn't really caught on back in the 90s. But these pretty much did. And people would abuse the system to obtain them in order to get as many as possible of the guru lands.
Yeah.
No matter what's going on with Therese Nielsen these days, you cannot deny that the Guru Land artworks are some of the most unbelievably striking and impressive pieces of art that's been on Magic cards. Once you see it, you'll never forget it. You know exactly what people are talking about when you say Guru Lands. Like, that image is in your head of one of the 5 lands and that really cool, double, double eclipse thing that's going on. Yeah. Absolutely sweet. And my God, at this point, a Guru Plains near mint, $377.
Jesus.
It's ridiculous. This is a program that only lasted for about 18 months. Mm-hmm. The Guru program was released in conjunction with the release of Starter, mm-hmm. which is the Gold Star expansion that you very rarely see anymore either. And it was a promotion to teach new players. And if you taught new players, you could get Guru basically forms to send in and receive things like a playmat. You would get identification labels for your cards. And you get a book, essentially, of rebate things that would allow you to send in for these Guru packs that had the lands in them. And so it wasn't just that you had to just receive these. You had to receive the program materials, send in for the lands, and then get the lands. Mm-hmm. So these were very difficult to obtain. They were only available for a little while and discontinued shortly thereafter.
Yeah, this was also the first program that I had heard about that specifically said it was being abused. You know what I mean? That
yes.
They had to stop doing it because people just ran wild with the making fake players and registering people that didn't exist or whatever to get as many of these lands as possible. And unfortunately, the bad guys might have won a little bit on that one.
I just remember when I think of these lands, I can't help but think of Shota Yasuka, because that was the thing that Shota used to floss on. Is like, you look at Shota, who's an amazing player, and then be like, oh, he's got style. Like, he's showing up with these lands, or it's like, okay, like.
This is the 4 to 5K mana base. It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, you're used to those.
I love it. I love it. Really,
Yeah, it's true. All right. Let's go to top 3. Aaron, what is your number 3?
So my number 3 is a staple in at least 3 formats, is the baddest bitch in the multiverse. And prior to this, we really only had, 1 or 2 looks at her, maybe. The first time was fine, but it just didn't age very well. She looked kind of silly. You didn't really take her in. You didn't really think of her as just being the majestic creature that she is. And then I don't remember the timeline. I don't remember if this came before Shadows over Innistrad or after, but we started to get a bit more of a lifelike impression of this character. And then this card came out and just took my breath away, and never have I wanted to play in an RPTQ so badly. My number 3 is Emrakul the Aeon's Torn. So Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, obviously 15 colorless, legendary creature Eldrazi, 15 power, 15 toughness. Emrakul cannot be countered. Whenever you cast Emrakul, take an extra turn after this one, flying, protection from colored spells, Annihilator 6, and then when she's put into a graveyard from anywhere, shuffle her into your library, your graveyard into your library. This RPTQ promo is gorgeous. Like, you just look at sort of how lifelike this is, and you see just sort of this new angle of her where she looks real, as opposed to, nothing wrong with the OG, but it looked kind of cartoony, to be quite honest. And so this kind of like the Shadows over Innistrad version felt real. Like, this felt like something you could touch. You could imagine when you look at those tentacles, they look real. Like, you could touch them, or you could, feel them, or you could watch them. I mean, just how lifelike this is, and also how beautiful it is. Emrakul kind of towing that line between being very not quite right, but still being gorgeous in a really weird way. And so I like that there's hedrons in the background. I like sort of the ominous kind of cloudy sky. You have the beautiful life, and it looks like one of the trees is being kind of dissolved by this, if I'm seeing that correctly. There's just so much going on here. It's beautiful, and just a really great way to pay an iconic character her due.
Yeah, $50 right now for I guess they call it a Pro Tour promo.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
As it were, but this is super sweet. This is the version I would want to play with. I don't care that there's an ultimate box topper. Yeah. This would be my box topper version.
Absolutely, yeah.
If this thing is in my cube, this is the version I would be running, 100%. Okay. All right, Ruben, what's number 3?
My number 3 is a weirdo, I think. It's a release foil, which we've talked about. Everybody loves release foils, but this is one of the only release foils I can think of. I think it is the only release foil that I can think of that is not a playable Magic card. You cannot shuffle this into your deck. Instead, this is a token that comes off of Dark Depths, because it is the Merit Lodge token that you got at the Cold Snap release event. Merit Lodge is a 2020 flying indestructible token legendary creature avatar. These were very expensive for a long time. Not quite so expensive anymore. You can pick one up for between $10 and $15 probably. But it is still a heck of a card with a lot of clout, so much so that this art and this style was later reprinted in From the Vault lore. A token saw a reprint in From the Vault lore. And then later, the exact same art was used for the Ultimate Masters and Modern Horizon versions of this token as well.
This used to be a $50 token, like, for real. It was insane. And I don't even know if I kept my token at the event. Like, no one gave a crap. Part of it was because people just, like, threw these things away. No one wanted this at the pre-release. No one wanted Cold Snap at the pre-release, y'all. It was like a 10 at a funeral at that pre-release. It was really sad. Not as bad as Saviors, though. That was the worst.
It's true. This Stefan Martiniere art is super iconic and very impressive.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that there's only been one image of Merit Lage, and it is this one in terms of existing in the world. But that token was super sweet and kind of hard to get because you had to be at those events because nobody came.
Right.
Okay. So My number 3 is a card that we are all extremely happy and grateful that they are not on that it is not on the reserve list, because God help us all how much this stupid card would be if Wizards couldn't dip back in the money bin and pull this thing out whenever they want to make something exciting, because they can do it every single time. Mana Crypt is a hell of a Magic card, and it didn't just show up like, in beta or something. Oh, no. Along with Arena and the Sewers of Estwark, you can only get Mana Crypt by sending in a little thing on the back of a book from Harper Prism, I think it was. Yeah, Harper Prism Books. What? To send in a little form that said, I bought your book, please send me this card. Okay, thanks. And they would send you a $250 card. And at the time, it was kind of neat, cute, maybe. No one really saw the benefit of it. Everyone just saw the downside. So, and this is me talking about I'm the 90s kid. I see this in people's binders and they tell me the story about it. And I'm like, oh, that's a weird card. No one plays that thing, right? And they're like, nope. And it's just unplayable jank, and I keep going. But no, obviously over time, this has turned into one of the coolest cards, one of the most powerful cards. Obviously 0 to make 2 mana is a thing. I usually make it my life's work that whenever this is in one of the cubes that Wizards has, to make sure that the person playing it against me loses to it, because I have won multiple games of Magic because this kills people.
I mean, my kink is watching people die to this. It makes me so happy. Or purposely, sometimes if I'm feeling really frisky, I could kill you. I just won't. Where I'll be like, I'll leave back a Nicker and pass.
Call it, friendo.
Yeah. This is also the reason why, especially if you're playing Outcome in Vintage, or you're playing a Time Walk deck, or you're playing you're playing Vault Key. Sometimes they'll do rook, and it's like, you got a crypt out. Go.
Every single
if you don't find a way to bounce that, you could very well just die. So take all the turns you want, bitch. Do it. Just do it.
So for those who don't know, Mana Crypt is a 0 mana artifact that says at the beginning of your upkeep, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, it deals 3 damage to you, and it taps for 2 it taps for 2 colorless mana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Call it, friendo. This is a really good example of that, and I'm glad that they printed more versions now. Being able to put them in a pack of some kind at the very least, and a couple of promo versions, as opposed to just having to mail in for them.
Which is crazy.
Which was, there was more than a decade of just not a lot of Mana Crypts.
It's always fun to see a $470 Kaladesh invention in paper and about $4 online.
Right.
About $4. About $4. All right. All right. Let's move on here to number 2. Ruben, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is a Grand Prix promo. I think that the Grand Prix promos have a great history. They've done a pretty good job with the Grand Prix promos. And one of my favorites from the history of Grand Prix promos, excuse me, was from 2012. When the Grand Prix promo was a beautiful Therese Nielsen art version of Lotus Cobra. Really just delightful art, reimagining of the Lotus Cobra from Therese Nielsen. By the way, Lotus Cobra, it's 2 total mana, colorless and a green for a 2/1 snake. It has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may add 1 mana of any color. The frame, the dragonfly wing, kind of fairy wing frames in the corners, the lotuses themselves in the foreground and the background beneath the Cobra itself. Just a beautiful piece of art and a wonderful card.
This card was so powerful and so ridiculous. This is one of the first mythics that you could tell. I mean, after essentially Baneslayer, this is one of the first mythics where they were like, really? You're going to put this effect? People thought this was fake. People were like, there's no way they're giving you fetch lands with this card. That's insane. Yeah. How would they give you 3 mana out of this one card on turn 3? That's ridiculous. And Wizards is like, no, that's just how it works. Good luck, have fun. And so we went through the good luck, have fun stage of Magic, which was Goblin Guides and Lotus Cobras and Jace the Mind Sculptors and the best man lands you ever saw in your life. And it was pretty fun and extremely powerful. We were playing with giant rocket launchers.
Everybody had NOS in their engines. Yeah,
we certainly did. But Lotus Cobra was a fantastic promo and led a terrific deck called Mythic, because you just ran Mythics in it.
It was also it had its day in the sun in Vintage, because you could go Mox land Lotus Cobra and then the next turn go land Jace the Mind Sculptor. So that's a thing that existed for a minute in Vintage. It was very popular in a number of formats. Being able to have 5 mana on turn 3 is a huge deal. And
hell still is.
And hell, it still is. That's right.
Absolutely. Aaron, what's number 2?
So I talked about my love for Seth MacKinnon, and I knew that the cards I picked were not going to be enough. And if I was going to prune my list, I had to include this one because it won an award. Like, not only is the card iconic, but the art is just unspeakably good. And the fact that it's award winning, I knew I had to put it at the top of my list. My number 2 is Stasis. So Stasis is 1 colorless and a blue. It's an enchantment. Players skip their untapped steps. You would never see this today, ever.
Yeah.
At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Stasis unless you pay blue. There is a dedicated portion of the community that just wants to Stasis people. Like, that's what they want to do. And there were some godless decks that Stasis enabled. And the art was kind of silly. It was like a seesaw with like a clown, and like you weren't really sure what was going on. It was kind of like a Rorschach test. But this is beautiful and still creepy. This won a Spectrum 25 award. He got a gold award for this, which obviously so. And so you have this little girl standing in the middle of a field, it looks like, at night. And she's looking at this flower, and, you know, she's very, very young and very innocent. And all around her are these knights that are covered in moss and fungus and dew and the same flowers that she's holding. And like, this is still beautiful and creepy and evocative, and just so many layers to this, that this is one of those pieces that you could just look at and find new things every time. Even as I'm looking at it now, it's like, oh God, you know, there's no trees, it's swords. Those are all the swords from the knights that are there. I thought those were trees in the background. I mean, just, you can't say enough about this art. Between being part of an iconic card and iconic art, it's just incredible.
You know, this is one of those pieces where you're like, you know, what's, you know, show me some magic art. You know, show me what you got. And you're like, here you go. That's an incredible piece that wins awards because it's fantastic. Stasis, the only card that people threatened to hurt me over, and I still played it anyway. One? It's the only really one. You know, he was just like, I want to punch you in the face if you're playing Stasis, and I was like, Island go. And, you know, then I proceeded to play Time Elementals and Sarah Angels, and it was completely ridiculous at the time. But I loved it, and it was great. And that was when we had tournaments and that's when we had tournaments in people's houses, in their living rooms. We would just hang out and like get little tables and stuff and be on couches and like whatever it took in order to get the round done, as it were. But Stasis is terrific. All right. So for my number 2, we are in the money. We are in the money. This is, best I can tell, the most expensive promo that exists for Magic currently.
Oh boy.
It is a promo that once upon a time, some friends of mine actually got me for my birthday. And I was like, oh, it's really cool. Thanks a lot. Blah, blah, blah. And that was really sweet, and I loved it. And later on, I sold it, and this obviously wasn't anytime recently. This was a long time ago, both the giving and the selling. But the point is, I looked at it these days and got a little sick, little stuff in the stomach right here. When you look at the $1,100 Gaia's Cradle promo, from the 1998 Judge Program, the Gaia's Cradle promo is worth $1,114.61 as of this recording. Yikes. And that's unbelievable. Now, at the time, it was a $300 card when I got it gifted to me. And I was like, oh my God, you guys are just way too generous. And it was $600 when I got rid of it, and now it's $1,100. So unbelievable. Gaia's Cradle, if you don't know, was part of a ridiculously overpowered cycle from Urza Saga. It is a legendary land that says tap, add 1 green to your mana pool for each creature you control.
So dumb.
It's dumb.
Pretty ridiculous.
Wizards did not know that, hey, you know that mana system that runs your entire game? Maybe we should just break it and see what happens.
Right, just snap
staple of any sort of Elves deck in Legacy or even Vintage. They're trying to make Elves a thing again. And like, this card just gets out of control. Even
in a deck like Maverick, where you just have 2 or 3 extra creatures in play, it's really powerful. This was my number 7.
Nice.
Someone drops this in a Scavenging Ooze, I'm scooping. Like, it's just like a Hoover vacuum at that point, just sucking everything up.
Yeah, you just look at promos on Scryfall and you sort by price, and this sucker is right on top. Whew. I mean, Gaia's Cradle is an incredible card. It is fantastic in older formats. It is super powered. You want to run a playset of it. You don't want to play one of it. And it's fantastic in casual decks. Obviously, any green casual decks probably going to want to run a Gaia's Cradle. So this is the ultimate pimp for your pimped out decks, is a Judge Gaia's Cradle. Let's move on here to number 1. Ruben, what was your number 1 promo card?
My number one, it had to be a pre-release foil. It had to be a pre-release promo. I had decided it has to be one of a couple of pre-release promos because those felt so important and so relevant to my upbringing. It was like, oh, I went to this event. This is my badge of honor that I was there for this event. And one that sticks in my memory that really I recall, and I think everybody recalls, even those of you that didn't play Judgment at the time, didn't play in the Judgment pre-release, you've definitely seen the Hebrew language glory from the Judgment pre-release.
Yeah.
Glory is 3 colorless white for a 3/3 flying. And you pay 2 colorless and a white and choose a color. Creatures you control gain protection from the chosen color until end of turn. Activate this ability only if Glory is in your graveyard because it is a creature incarnation. And that's what the incarnations did. They had effects from your graveyard. Glory, normal printings do also have that adorable tombstone symbol up in the upper right-hand corner or upper left-hand corner as well. The Hebrew version, though, from May 18th, 2002, illustrated by our friend Donnie G, Donato Giancola, and with the Hebrew script, I think was super iconic. There was also the I believe it was Arabic Stone Tongue Basilisk. I believe there was a Cyrillic promo, pre-release promo as well.
They went through a ton of old languages before they finished out with that cycle. And this cycle, and this version in particular, is absolutely amazing. The pre-release version is $22 for this very reason, I feel. It's not because the card's that powerful. It's because the card is absolutely sweet. Nothing looks anything like it, and I think that's always really cool.
Oh, there was a Sanskrit fungal shambler from Apocalypse.
I'm going to change my drag name to that, Sanskrit fungal shambler.
Nice.
There you go. There was a Russian Laquatus's champion. That's the one that I remembered being Cyrillic.
Yeah.
They did a couple of these in a row. There weren't a ton, but this one really, I remember quite vividly.
It is absolutely terrific. All right, so Aaron, what is your number one?
So I took a page from the Ruben Bressler playbook in that I'm very much an only child. I want it all. And I knew that there was a card that I wanted to be my number one. But then I realized it came as part of the set. And I was like, well, I could maybe do like one or two. But I was like, why should I have to choose? Like, you can have it all.
Right.
So I'm going to have it all. My number one is the San Diego Comic-Con set from 2016. So this is the most on-brand thing I could think of. And I don't normally blink for these. Like I don't normally get it up for the Comic-Con sets. I am not that audience, and that's fine, accept that. But damn it. So this is a set done by Eric Deschamps. It's funny how that sounds like chomp. Maybe I'm just doing that wrong, but Deschamps. And it is 5 planeswalkers. It is Chandra Flamecaller, Gideon Ally of Zendikar, Jace Unraveler of Secrets, Liliana the Last Hope, and Nissa Voice of Zendikar. Only I think 3 of these saw any real play, being Gideon, Liliana, and Nissa. But girl, they're zombie planeswalkers. So we knew going into Amonkhet that things were about to get real, and they all ended up getting their butts kicked. And so I don't know if this was intentional or not, but this is we also were in Innistrad, which is of course the home of dead things. But the idea of seeing the planeswalkers like this and kind of almost dying to themselves in a way, or just having these neat callbacks to who they are. Chandra being burnt. Gideon choking himself, like his own hand, he's like wrapped himself around his neck, and his hand is like down here. It's ripped off, and the hand's dangling from his neck. You have Jace eating his own brains, it looks like. I mean, like, oh my God. Liliana being normal.
Liliana's just
she's not zombified. She's cool.
Well, she's controlling the others.
Right. And then you have Nissa, who's just sort of famine. Like she's just very withered. It looks like she's almost gone hungry. There's no sign of life around her. Maybe some like dead flowers on her head, but we had just never seen anything like this before, much less confronting the idea that these characters could die. Like people were kind of getting sick of them around this time. And so some people were kind of happy about this, but it's like, could this happen? Like, is
Right.
this going to happen? And so,
Yeah.
I mean, the art is just amazing. And just the way that there are sort of these in jokes there of Jace eating brains, Chandra burning herself, all of the layers that go along with this. I mean, this was the only set that I ever gave a crap about. And it was still a little too much for me to pay at the time, but I've always kept my eye open for this. Whenever I go to GPs, or wherever I go to, Gen Con or things like that, I've always got my eye open for it. You got a good deal on this? Because if I found the right price, I would totally do this. Eric has recently released playmats with the group on it.
Right.
I don't need any more playmats, but I cannot say enough about this art, and I just couldn't choose. I wanted them all.
And I'm glad that the San Diego Comic-Con promos made an appearance on some of our list. Evan's number one notwithstanding, I don't know.
It's not.
We could have more. Okay. But these are, I'm glad that these were included because they are a big piece of promo history in Magic.
Mm-hmm.
It's just funny. Gideon dead, Jace dead, Chandra dead, Nissa dead, Liliana. Just loving life. Just doing it. Living her best zombie life.
Undead.
Yeah.
Best undead life. There you go. Very nice. So for my number one, when I started making this list, now obviously I wanted to go through all the promos. I wanted to see what other people said. I wanted to find other discussions about promos they liked and stuff that I liked and whatever, going through the big old list and stuff. But the instant I made the spreadsheet, top 10 promos, I just went ahead and just put this as number one. No question. This to me is the number one, coolest, one of the most sought after, one of the most powerful, one of the most unique. Like, it is so interesting to me that they made this happen at all, that in 2014, for the Judge program, a Phyrexian language Elish Norn Grand Cenobite showed up. This thing is $237 as of the printing today.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, Elish Norn Grand Cenobite is two white and 5 generic mana for a legendary Praetor with Vigilance. She is a 4/7 that says other creatures you control get +2/+2, and creatures your opponents control get -2/-2. This is a staple in all the casual formats. It's a staple in Cube. It is one of the coolest cards to show up out of New Phyrexia. One of the most iconic. They've printed it 3 times and it's still $20. But this promo in the Phyrexian language is just amazing. It blew me away the moment I saw it, and it's been my favorite promo ever since I've seen it. It's just unbelievable.
That's a great
choice.
choice.
Especially in recent years, they've tried to make so many changes in the face of accessibility and how clean things are. They've wanted people to be able to see things. They've done a lot of work on the frames, and to see all of that kind of go out the window of like, nope, you can't even read it. Where it was a new take on. They've done text lists. But this is just incredible and just changed the game.
Yeah, it was absolutely terrific, and I loved everything about it. And congratulations to all the judges who got their copy, which is awesome. And yeah, I just love me some Elish Norn. I can't help it. So that wraps up our top 10 promos. You'll see them on the screen right now for your review. Take a look at my list, Aaron's list, Ruben's top 10. And we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about. And we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you.
I'll move here to our final slide. So, I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler, you guys for watching or listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at Magic Mikes, on Twitter at Magic Mikes Cast, our Magic Mikes subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Talk to us privately at MagicMikesPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMikesPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes and Spotify, or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.